We work with both undocumented and documented workers. So one example, when we were organizing delivery workers at Saigon Grill, they won an injunction. They were fired. They were locked out of their work. They won an injunction in the labor board. But right when they won an injunction, then the employer said, well, I can't hire you back because you're undocumented. And so in another instance, that happened at a New Jersey restaurant where we organized workers. They did not get a single wage at all. They only got like their tips. And they were also fired for trying to unionize. And there was a mix of documented and undocumented workers. So when the undocumented workers weren't allowed to return to work, also that kind of killed the organizing for the documented workers. And in the meantime, the employer still kept on hiring undocumented workers, but of course, those who are not engaged in the union activity. And so time and time again, I'm actually here in Houston and we're working with a group of workers who are organizing against sexual harassment and also retaliation. And they're going through the labor board, but the boss already has threatened to call ICE and use the immigration law to kind of quash any kind of workers organizing. What we have analyzed, I think, throughout the years is that this goes back to a certain provision in the Immigration and Reform and Control Act. It's called Employer Sanctions Provision. And unlike what the name is called, actually, it punishes workers. And so since 1986, when it was passed, actually, we've seen union organizing plummet, right? And we've seen employers use undocumented workers against documented workers. So they can easily, it's incentivized to hire undocumented workers because, of course, pay less, right? Work harder, or sometimes don't pay at all. I mean, I was just talking with somebody who was organizing Hurricane Katrina workers, and then they were saying that they were all subcontracted, and right when they were supposed to be paid, the boss said, or the contractor said, well, I'm going to call ICE. So they used that, and then they basically all dispersed and disappeared, right? And so we've seen how since 1986, when that law passed, it's really kind of quashed the labor movement. The political demand that we see as kind of a unifying marker is the repeal of the employer sanctions provision, because as long as that is in place, undocumented workers cannot organize. American workers, they're pitted against immigrant workers, and then they blame immigrant workers. And we see a lot of these division coming out of that, right? I mean, this political climate in our country now. And so again and again, we might win certain victories, but at the end of the day, it's also a loss too, because, the workers are disunited. And so I think that's a central demand for us. And, it's not a popular one right now because, a lot of people like to call for legalization and amnesty, which, we support, adjustment of status, right? But we see that actually the immigrant rights groups and the movement, just by calling for these limited demands, they actually marginalize themselves even more. And actually they create more divisions because then it becomes, I just want to get papers so that I can get, move up the ladder. But then you have these American workers who are saying, why should they get papers? Why should they get these privileges? We've been here, we can't even find a job. So it doesn't do anything to resolve that division. It needs to be repealed in order for workers to be able to come together. And so our positive demand is to call for equal rights for all workers to organize.